Welcome to the darkest corners of Queensland, where restless souls refuse to rest. From eerie apparitions to chilling whispers in the night, these are the top 10 haunted cemeteries that will make your skin crawl and your heart race. Are you brave enough to step inside and uncover their secrets? 1. Wong Cemetery, Brisbane, Queensland. They said it was just a walk through history. A quiet evening stroll among headstones at Wong Cemetery, nestled on the hills of Brisbane, Queensland. But that night, the silence spoke. As the sun dipped below the tree line, casting long golden shadows over the 120,000 graves, he noticed something odd, a faint rustle behind a jacaranda tree. No wind, no animals. Just the uneasy crunch of leaves that didn't match his own steps. He paused, turned around, nothing. Wong has long been whispered about by locals. The cemetery, dating back to 1866, holds the remains of prominent politicians, war heroes, and unclaimed souls. Among them, the most chilling tale, the Lady in White. Many have claimed to see her, a pale woman in a long dress, drifting near the temple graves around midnight. She's been blamed for sudden temperature drops, shadow figures in photographs, and even car batteries inexplicably dying near the gates. In 2014, a paranormal group conducted an overnight investigation. Using thermal cameras, they captured what they described as an icy, human-like shape gliding across Road 12, disappearing behind a crypt that was locked for over 40 years. One team member collapsed minutes later, mumbling about a voice asking to go home. And here's the twist. When he tried to leave that night, his phone died. Not just the battery, the whole device fried. Yet when he returned to the same spot days later in daylight ... everything worked fine. Coincidence? Maybe, but in Wong Cemetery, not everything stays buried. 2. South Brisbane Cemetery, Dutton Park, Queensland. She didn't believe in ghosts. Not until she walked alone through South Brisbane Cemetery in Dutton Park, Queensland, just before dusk. The cemetery, dating back to 1866, is tucked behind rusting iron gates and shaded by twisted fig trees. A place of history, yes, but also of whispers. Locals warn not to stray too far from the main path, especially near the old convict graves. That evening, she followed a narrow gravel trail toward the rear section, where the gravestones tilt like teeth from the earth. As she stepped closer, her breath caught. A child's laughter, faint, unnatural, drifted from behind a row of headstones. She called out, no response, just silence. Then a cold wind, sudden and slicing, though the air had been still seconds earlier. Historians say the cemetery holds over 20,000 bodies, many of them unidentified or buried in unmarked plots. Paranormal investigators have documented electromagnetic surges and phantom voices in this very section. One photo from 2009 showed a translucent figure kneeling beside a grave, a child's grave, untouched for decades. She turned to leave, heart pounding, only to freeze. A woman in black stood at the cemetery gates, still, silent, and staring. In the blink of an eye, she was gone. When she told her story later, someone asked what time she heard the laughter. Just after 6, she said. The reply sent a chill down her spine. That's when Eleanor Matthews was found, the girl buried alone near the fig tree. They say she still waits for someone to find her. 3. Wong Cemetery, Kedron. He was a night shift security guard, rational, grounded. But what happened at Wong Cemetery in Kedron, Queensland, shattered everything he thought he knew. It started with a call, a report of kids sneaking in after hours. He arrived just past midnight, the iron gate creaking as he pushed it open. The moon cast long shadows across the neat rows of war graves. It was quiet, too quiet. As he moved through the grounds, his flashlight flickered, Not once. 3 times. A signal, perhaps? He brushed it off. Until he reached Section F, that's when he saw him, a man in uniform standing motionless beside a white cross. At first, the guard thought it was a statue, but then the figure slowly raised a hand to its forehead and saluted. Frozen in place, the guard called out. No reply. He stepped closer, only for the figure to vanish completely. Gone, not a trace. Lew Cemetery is home to hundreds of Commonwealth war graves, many from World War I and II. Over the years, visitors have reported seeing soldiers marching silently at dawn, or hearing footsteps behind them with no one in sight. In 2018, a local historian captured an EVP near the memorial wall. The voice whispered, "Still standing, ... always." No one else was present. The guard quit that same week, but not before checking the records. The grave he'd seen the figure by? Private James Rowe died in 1942. His headstone reads, "Faithful unto death, forever watching," and maybe he still is. 4. Ipswich General Cemetery, Ipswich. It was supposed to be a paranormal tour, a thrill, nothing more. But the night they stepped into Ipswich General Cemetery, something stepped into them. Located in Ipswich, Queensland, this cemetery is one of the oldest in the state. Established in the 1860s, by day it's a peaceful sprawl of history, but by night, the dead don't rest easy. They were halfway through the tour when the medium suddenly stopped, eyes wide, staring at an empty patch of grass between 2 crumbling headstones. "He's here," she whispered. "He's angry." Everyone laughed nervously until the temperature plummeted. Not a breeze, not a cloud. Yet the cold was sharp and immediate. One of the group's EMF detectors began shrieking, lights flashing red. Then came the voice, captured on audio, a low growl. "Get out." This wasn't a gimmick. Paranormal researchers had warned about this section. The unmarked graves of asylum patients buried without names, without rites, without peace. Some say the energy here is so thick, your chest tightens the moment you cross the boundary. A local legend tells of a shadow figure that paces the old children's section, especially around 3 m. It's said to vanish when approached, but leave footprints in the dew. That night, as the group fled, one man glanced back, just for a second, and saw a tall, dark silhouette standing among the graves, watching. Later, when they reviewed their footage, that same figure appeared again, in the corner of the frame, behind them, where no one had been. Ipswich General Cemetery doesn't just hold the dead. Sometimes it lets them walk. 5. Nunda Cemetery. Nunda, it began with a photo. A woman visiting Nunda Cemetery in Nunda, Queensland, snapped a picture of her grandmother's grave at dusk. But when she looked back later, someone else was in the frame. A figure, faint, draped in black, stood behind the tombstone, head bowed, face hidden. She'd been alone. Nunda Cemetery dates back to the mid-1800s, quietly nestled between suburban streets. But for locals, it's far more than a resting place. They whisper about the lady in black, an apparition said to appear near the children as graves, not once, not twice, but dozens of times. One man, a groundskeeper, quit after working just 2 nights. He claimed he saw her kneeling, motionless, over a grave from 1889. When he approached, she vanished, but left a cold imprint in the grass where she'd knelt, as if someone had truly been there. Researchers from a Brisbane Paranormal Society set up motion sensors and thermal cameras around the site in 2020. Just past midnight, the footage showed a temperature drop of nearly 15 degrees within seconds. Then a blurry shape appeared, thin, feminine, moving between the graves. One chilling detail: every device they brought malfunctioned simultaneously for exactly 1 minute, the exact length of time the figure remained in view. They later discovered the grave she hovered near belonged to Margaret Blake, a mother who lost 3 children to scarlet fever. She died 1 year later, alone, grief-stricken. The inscription on her stone reads, "We shall meet again at Nunda Cemetery." Maybe she already has. 6. Dunwich Cemetery, North Stradbroke Island. The ferry ride to North Stradbroke Island was calm, peaceful, even. But the moment she stepped into Dunwich Cemetery, the air grew heavier, denser, like something ancient was watching. Perched near the water's edge, Dunwich Cemetery is more than just a burial site. It holds the forgotten dead of the island's grim past, patients from the old Dunwich Benevolent Asylum, where the sick, the poor, and the unwanted were sent to waste away. Over 10,000 people were buried here, many in mass graves, unmarked, unblessed. She walked among the weathered stones, most barely legible. The ocean breeze whispered through the eucalyptus trees. But then the silence broke. A distant, guttural scream echoed from the back of the grounds. Not an animal, not the wind. Something raw, human, agonized. Panicked, she turned to leave, only to see a flicker of blue light drifting between 2 crooked trees. It hovered, shimmered, then darted out of view. When she reached the spot, the temperature dropped so sharply her breath fogged, despite the summer heat. Locals say those lights are souls still searching, trapped by the violent deaths, disease, and despair that stained the asylum's legacy. In 2017, a documentary team captured a full-body apparition at infrared, a figure in hospital clothes, pacing along the old perimeter fence, the same route patients once walked before they died. And then there's the tale of Room 13, a ward at the asylum where multiple patients died screaming. Rumors say their bodies were dumped without ceremony right here, beneath the mangroves. No markers, no names. But at Dunwich Cemetery, the island remembers. And sometimes it lets the dead be seen. 7. Cooktown Cemetery, Cooktown. The sun was setting when he arrived at Cooktown Cemetery in Cooktown, Queensland, a place locals warned him to avoid after dark, but he was a skeptic until he heard the bell. The cemetery, founded in the 1870s, is a strange blend of Chinese, European, and indigenous burials. Some graves are ornate, others are nothing more than weathered wood and stone, but the stories, they're all the same. They speak of a phantom bell that rings on windless nights, long after the real chapel bell was removed. He laughed at the legend, until it rang for him. Just one chime, distant, hollow. It came from the center of the cemetery, where the graves are oldest and names have faded with time. Drawn toward the sound, he passed a collapsed fence and stepped onto a forgotten path. That's when he saw it, a man in a 19th century naval coat, standing beside a cracked headstone. The man's eyes were dark, empty. His mouth didn't move, but the word echoed in the air. Below, then nothing. The man vanished. Silence. He fled, heart racing. But when he checked the grave the next day, it belonged to Captain Elias Mercer, a shipmaster who died in 1881. Legend claims his ship was cursed. He lost his entire crew to sickness and was buried alone, far from the sea he loved. Paranormal investigators have recorded low-frequency moans, and one even fainted near Mercer's grave after claiming he felt like he was drowning. That's the thing about Cooktown Cemetery. The ghosts here don't scream. They whisper, and sometimes they ring the bell just once to remind you they're still waiting. 8. Belgian Garden Cemetery, Townsville. He didn't expect much from Belgian Garden Cemetery in Townsville, Queensland. It was broad daylight, the sky was clear, and the rows of headstones stretched calmly beneath the sun. But what he captured on his drone camera would haunt him forever. Flying over the northern edge of the cemetery, a section where Japanese war graves lie, his drone suddenly lost control, veering sharply downward. Before it crashed, the live feed showed a figure in military uniform standing motionless between the graves. The face was blurred. The shadows stretched in the wrong direction. When he rushed to the spot, there was no one. No footprints. No wind. Later, while reviewing the footage frame by frame, he noticed something even more chilling. The figure had no eyes. Just hollow sockets, black and staring. Belgian Gardens is the largest cemetery in Townsville, dating back to the 19th century. It's a mix of cultures, wars, and tragedies. The war section holds stories, no textbook covers, whispers of soldiers who never made it home, and some who never truly left. Locals tell of a soldier in torn uniform who wanders during full moons, especially in April, near Anzac Day. One woman swears she saw him standing at her grandfather's grave, saluting. When she blinked, he was gone, but the flowers she left had been crushed, as if stepped on. In 2015, a paranormal team caught an EVP near the same section. A voice, male, whispering, "No surrender." Maybe it's grief, maybe it's guilt. But at Belgian Garden Cemetery, the battle isn't over. Some souls are still standing guard. 9. Maryborough Cemetery. Maryborough? She was drawn to Maryborough Cemetery in Maryborough, Queensland by curiosity, but what she found was sorrow, and something else. The cemetery dates back to the 1870s, a quiet place surrounded by gum trees and iron fences. But within its bounds lies a section that locals rarely visit, the children's graves, rows of tiny headstones, many without names, only dates, some just days apart. She walked among them with flowers, paying respects. The air was still. Then a sound. Light, joyful, laughter. It danced in the wind like a child playing hide and seek. She spun around, half expecting to see someone, but the path was empty. Her skin chilled, not from cold, but something deeper, like eyes watching from behind the veil. Locals speak of the playful ones, spirits of children lost to epidemics in the late 1800s. Scarlet fever, typhoid, influenza. So many died so quickly that some were buried in shared plots. In 2016, a nighttime ghost tour recorded a series of light anomalies, like bouncing orbs, weaving through the children as section. One paused beside a stone marked simply, "Baby J." Seconds later, the group's audio recorder caught a tiny voice whispering, "Mummy?" And then there's the rocking horse. It sits beside a grave left by a grieving family. Visitors say it moves, not from the wind, but slowly, deliberately, as if some little one, is still playing. She left that day in tears, not of fear, but of heartbreak. At Maryborough Cemetery, the dead don't cry out. They giggle. And sometimes, if you're still enough, they let you hear them. 10. Drayton and Womba Cemetery. Womba. He arrived just before sunset, camera in hand, chasing ghost stories. Drayton and Womba Cemetery, nestled in Womba, Queensland, was quiet. Too quiet. Established in the 1850s, it is one of the oldest cemeteries in the state and one of the most deeply haunted. The locals don't just speak of ghosts here, they warn about them. He wandered toward the eastern ridge, where unmarked graves from the town's early days lie hidden beneath weeds and time. That's when he saw it. A woman, pale and still, stood between two leaning headstones. Her dress was old, torn at the hem, her face downcast. He raised his camera, but the lens fogged instantly, despite the dry air. When he lowered it, she was gone. Then came the knock. Soft, sharp, repeating. 3 knocks from beneath the ground. Panic surged through him. He backed away, only to trip over a jagged stone. When he scrambled to his feet, he saw something carved into the grave nearest him, buried alive minus 1,867. That's no legend. Historical records confirm at least 2 cases in the 19th century where people were mistakenly buried. One was exhumed with scratch marks inside the coffin lid. Ever since, that section of the cemetery has been haunted by the knocking ghost, a restless spirit heard tapping beneath the soil, especially on cool, quiet evenings. In 2021, a paranormal team recorded an EVP near the grave that whispered one word: "Let me out." At Drayton and Womba Cemetery, the dead don't just haunt the living. Some are still trying to escape. These cemeteries hold more than just graves. They hold stories of sorrow, mystery, and spirits that linger beyond the veil. Which haunting tale sent a shiver down your spine? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling explorations into the unknown.